Good evening, everyone. So excited to be back with you all for this special set of You Ask Me Answers. It's been a while, so to reintroduce myself, my name is Michelle Wilson. I use they, she pronouns. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer here at Women Engage. And so we're here to talk all things about Black and Roe and to catch people up to speed about the campaign that we have going on, share some of the amazing highlights that are happening, everything else. And so shout out to the folks in the chat. I see you, Zoe. Thank you for tuning in. And definitely completely relate to answer that question. Something that is bringing me joy, definitely video games. Um, as many folks know, I'm an avid gamer. Love to play it, love to do it, and also to like watching people play video games. So right now, really into watching the gameplay on Resident Evil, just in terms of self care. And so just giving a little bit of space for people to join in. But really excited for the amazing things that we have going on here at Women Engage. Amazing things that with our team has been putting in a lot of work, a lot of research to really educate people about what Black and Roe means for us. And also connecting with our partners as we continue to build a larger movement and discussion that really centers Black women, femmes, and girls. And so, yay. And so I invite folks who are listening now or in the future to type it in the chat if there are any questions that you have that come up throughout this conversation, this highlight of the topic at hand, and let us know if you're interested. We're always looking for folks who are interested in joining the conversation with us. And so if you want to join that conversation, you can sign up today at www.womenengage.org/join. And you'll make sure to check the box that says Black and Roe. And someone with our team will be able to reach out to you with other ways to get involved with the campaign, as well as other opportunities to just stay involved when it comes to social justice and movement work. I want to also go ahead and do a shout out to our partners who have worked really diligently with us to share their social media platforms, share their time and their expertise to uplift the messages, information, and provide perspective to the conversation. And so I want to name those partners today. That's We Dream in Black. That is the political hub for the National Domestic Workers Alliance here in Atlanta, Georgia. Black Feminist Future, Amplify Georgia, which is also a collaborative of other abortion forward organizations that work across the state of Georgia. We have Feminist Women's Health Center, which is a clinic that provides full comprehensive reproductive health care services to the area. And then we also have 9 to 5 Working Women Georgia, who also do a lot of work around economic empowerment and economic justice. And so I just want to again shout out our partners and those who I may have forgotten. Please charge it to my head and not my heart. As we, of course, appreciate you all in terms of uplifting our hashtag tonight. And so I know some people are still joining in. As you're joining in, make sure to chime in the chat where you're coming from. This is definitely an interactive conversation as we talk about where we are right now with the campaign and how we'll be moving forward with the conversation. So I'm really excited to share that with you all today. The first thing I want to acknowledge is that Black and Roe, that's hashtag BLKNROE, was a project that was inspired by our co-founder and CEO, Malika Redmond. And that's because oftentimes, especially when we talk about the 50-year anniversary of Roe v. Wade, which was in January of this year, oftentimes what is left out of the conversation when it comes to abortion rights is the predicament and realities of Black women, femmes, and girls. And it's actually led to the birth of the reproductive justice movement, as we know it, which was created in 1994 by 12 amazing Black women, which were actually convened by Honorable Abel Mabel Thomas, who was a longstanding politician here in Georgia and continues to do work as a part of the Atlanta Reproductive Justice Commission alongside Malika Redmond and many other advocates across the state. But really just wanted to uplift some of the historical significance about why this conversation is so timely important, especially in the aftermath of the Dobbs decision that happened last year and the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I want to start with just the historical context that over 50 years ago, when Roe v. Wade was on its way to the Supreme Court, a topic of conversation was about the maternal mortality rates that were impacting Black women and femmes at that time, and how the need for access to abortion care along with comprehensive reproductive health care was really important to improving the qualities of our lives. what we can see now is that now 50 years removed from that, we're still facing these issues around abortion care. Yet we also still see that Black women are still leading the nation when it comes to mortality, maternal mortality in this country, let alone the state where Georgia's actually leading the country in those numbers. I also want to highlight too that oftentimes a lot of folks had a lot of misconceptions when it came to the decision of Roe v. Wade, really believing that that meant that all abortion was legal. But as we can see over the course of these last 50 years, that was a promise that was not fully actualized for a number of people in this country, especially for Black women, femmes, and girls, and working class people. What we have seen over the years are targeted attacks that continue to make it burdensome and almost impossible for people to seek the care that's necessary for them to get access to abortion care or full comprehensive reproductive health care services. That means by enlisting legislation that continues to make it more costly, restricting access to experts such as OBGYNs and other practitioners, and being able to provide and aid care for those who in need, and continuing to further the stigma and perpetuate large misconceptions about those who are seeking abortion care and the reasons thereof. And so, what we saw leading into the overturning of Roe v. Wade was the last ditch efforts after experiencing what we saw across the nation in the years of 2018 through 2019, a sweeping course of anti abortion bills that resulted in the 6-week abortion ban. One which was enacted here in Georgia, and one that was recently enacted in Florida just last week. We have a really amazing playlist I suggest for those who are tuning in who may not have heard it. That does a deeper dive in terms of the history of Roe v. Wade and why it's important. I really encourage you all to check that out on our YouTube channel. That's www.youtube.com/women engaged, to really get into the nitty gritty of that conversation. I don't want to necessarily rehash that part of it, but really want to uplift and talk about why it's important right now that we center the conversations, the experiences of Black women, femmes, and girls when it comes to abortion rights. And so the reason for that is because we really want to expand the conversation to understand the nuances of one, why the importance of having access to abortion rights is critical for our self-care and for our communities and our family planning, and knowing how that impacts how we are able to live our lives fully and raise our families to safe and sustainable conditions as we live out our values for reproductive justice. I want to make sure that I also uplift and start shouting out some of our amazing folks who have also been contributing to the conversation. So I want to shout out first, and just so you know, this conversation is taking place every Wednesday on Twitter. But if you can't join in on Twitter, you can always uplift on any social media platform that you're on. But I first want to start talking about Erica Williams 7 on Twitter, who says that they treat pregnant people like a vessel and how the rights of the fetus outweigh the rights of the person when carrying the fetus. Talking about that and the impact of the ongoing conversation of Black and Roe. And I definitely want to address and thank Erica for joining our conversation on Twitter for that. And knowing that oftentimes what happens now is a dehumanization of what it means for people to be pregnant in this country, and to what it means in terms of like being able to really access care and the actual realities that are impacting people when it comes to that. I use Georgia as an example, who we are a state that has the most counties, like third to Texas and California, with 159 counties. And over half of our counties do not have an OBGYN in that area, which means that sometimes people have to travel hours in order to seek care, and understanding that sometimes the ability to even have the resources or the care needed to even know that you're pregnant before 6 weeks, let alone be able to make decisions between you and your healthcare practitioners, is almost nearly impossible to do it within that short time window. And so when we think about Erica's tweet talking about how the rights of the fetus outweigh the rights of the person carrying the fetus, is that it is a very dehumanizing process, and understanding the belief of people being able to be empowered to make our own decisions. And for us, particularly in the conversations of Black and Roe, understanding that that dehumanization is deeply rooted in white supremacy and sexism, which takes form in what we call misogynoir, and how Black women oftentimes, historically speaking, in this country, oftentimes we're not able to access our full voice and our full autonomy in this country. So I really wanted to uplift that too. And so I see there's some more people joining in. Again, feel free to chime in the chat as you have questions or you hear things. But it's just to catch people up to speed about some of the amazing gains that we've made on the Black and Road conversation and to encourage people to join in on that conversation as well. Now that I think about it, I would love to give you all a quick timeline in terms of where we're going with that conversation as well. Black and Road, we're planning to continue to extend the campaign over into the month of June. We'll be having an amazing program that's centered around young people and how young people are really understanding what's going on from a historical standpoint and how we start making gains and tractions and strategizing for future actions, such as here in Georgia, where we're trying to pass the Reproductive Freedom Act, something that we've been working with Amplify Georgia and other partners over the last 3 years to codify abortion into state law and ensure that we protect that right for all people. There's also work happening on a national level through the Women's Health Protection Act, which would do the same thing to codify abortion into national law to ensure that people have access to that as well. So I'm really excited for us to really have that broader conversation. It's going to be a month-long event where we have different videos, different ways to engage in that conversation, and really talking about it there. I also want to uplift there too the call to action from Optimus.prime on Instagram. So shout out to Optimus.prime saying that calling your legislators can help support Black women, femmes, and girls as their reproductive rights are continuously being attacked. People power is key. And that's really at the heart of why we're having these type of conversations, at the partnerships that we make, and especially at the work that we do here at Women Engaged. So I really want to shout out Optimus Prime for that point there, and knowing that us cultivating these relationships and letting our legislators know that we're here and that we're holding them accountable to doing what needs to be done to protect our rights is crucial to ensuring that we not only regain the rights that we had through Roe v. Wade, but expanding the access to that care. And that's why the conversation of Black and Roe is about abortion access, but continues to expand into the nuances of what prevents us from getting adequate care. And so in the case of Georgia, Georgia has failed to expand Medicaid through the Affordable Care Act, which means that roughly 1 in 4 Black Georgians are without health care because they don't make enough money to qualify for Medicaid, but do not have enough to pay for the premiums that are on the marketplace because we haven't expanded it through the Affordable Care Act. That means that the Georgia state legislature is literally leaving millions of dollars on the table as allocated by the US government to assist people to get access to healthcare. And so we could call our legislators today and know that asking them to do things like expanding Medicaid, asking them to do things like supporting the passage of the Reproductive Freedom Act going into 2024 are different types of actions that we can do to ensure that our folks are being protected, that we are combating against the attacks that are happening on our rights and our bodily autonomies, and that we're really forging forward for a new future. And so I really want to uplift that. The next person I want to shout out here is sweetbaby.k on Instagram as well. Shout out to the folks on Instagram. I'm here for an Instagram chat, okay? I definitely love the visuals on Instagram, so I really appreciate you, Sweet Baby K. Free education can help support Black women, femmes, and girls as their reproductive rights are continuously being attacked. And that's honestly what's at the heart of Black and Road right now. We have an amazing team of subject matter experts and other digital experts as well who are doing a lot of work and research to get fact-based information and put it out into the sphere to make it as accessible as possible. And you can be a part of that too by signing up today, again, at www.womenengage.org/join. And that's going to enable us to make sure that we're getting the right information to the right people. And that's because historically speaking, we have already seen an increase in misinformation and disinformation that's been used to sway people. There are coordinated attacks that prey upon the historical traumas that we faced in this country to sway people against progressive ideals, to sway people against the ideas of understanding around things around abortions. And so that goes back to my point earlier about the misconceptions that we have around abortions, right? And so folks can share some of the misconceptions that they may have had when it came to abortion rights. I'd be interested to hear what you all have heard out there, but I know for what I've seen and what our research has shown, and the research that Malika has done as well, is that oftentimes we will see this mischaracterization that oftentimes paints a trope of someone who seeks abortion care, which continues to minimize the reality of what abortion care really looks like in this country and how people access it and what's actually happening. Especially now in the aftermath of the Dobbs decision, and where a number of states had a bill in place that outright banned abortion. We're seeing people who actually need abortion care as a critical part for their health care, particularly for those who may experience miscarriages or any fetal anomalies, where getting an abortion technically, or getting an evacuation of the uterus, is really important, and that is technically classified as abortion. And people are no longer able to access those places of care, or place those actions of care, because we're outlawing abortion based off of ill-formed, misconceived tropes or ideas of how people want to paint what abortions look like or why people seek abortions. And so really wanted to name that as well. I also want to talk about this next Instagram comment that we have from Aqua_Need. So shout out to them. They say that this campaign really made them realize that how we need more access to Black doctors. And so I think the other part about it is too, when we talk about comprehensive healthcare, is making sure that people are also believed when they're seeking the care they need. So another reason why we're explaining this conversation is that it's not enough to make abortion illegal in this country, in this state, for Black women, femmes, and girls. What we need is a complete overhaul, a complete advocacy for our rights as full autonomous beings, and to be believed when we go and see our doctors. When we look at the numbers in terms of maternal deaths, those are going up to 12 months post-birth. And oftentimes, regardless of class, can be impacted for any Black woman, femme, or girl, in particular when it comes to accessing that care. So what that means is that oftentimes people will go to their doctors, tell them that something is wrong, and won't necessarily be believed, regardless if they have access to money or the care or not. And I think about that in the case of, if folks are not familiar with Serena Williams and what she went through when she was pregnant, someone who's an athlete who's very in tune with their body. And in her experience, she went to the doctor was at the doctor, just gave birth, and said that something was wrong in her chest, like she didn't feel right. And the nurse at the time just was like, "Oh no, you'll be fine, mom, you'll be fine." And Selena, again, having to advocate for herself, was like, "No, I check on this all the time. I have these things that are going on. I'm very sure what's going on here." And instead, the nurse came back and tested something on her leg. And Selena, again, like, "No, I'm telling you what's wrong. You need to do this." And over time was able to finally get the care they need when they got the nurse, quote unquote, got the proof by doing elsewhere. And it turned out that what she needed to do was exactly what Selena told her to do. And so we think about that in the aspect of, like, if Serena Williams is experiencing this, even with the status that she has in this country, there's inherently a deeper need for having culturally competent doctors and medical staff who can really appropriately give care to folks as needed. And also too, that we're providing space and nuance for advocating for midwives and doulas to also be in the rooms for folks as well, to advocate for them when they're not able to do so. And so I think another highlight of this amazing campaign is that during this time, we did our annual presentation at the Tony K. Bambara Scholar Activism Conference at Spelman College with the Women's Resource and Research Center. And so there we were able to pick out some quotes from folks who were talking about what reproductive justice means to them. And I think that's really what's at the core of this conversation of Black and Roe, is that we're continuing to expand that conversation to understand what that means. And so for one person, they said that it means access to care, reproductive care. It means that no government official has the power to tell me what I can and cannot do with my body. It means to them to have the ability to choose when and how to have a child. That reproductive justice as a whole is about the holistic view of how we see people and their autonomy, and how we're able to build our families and communities and seek power for ourselves. And so we're really excited to continue to have this conversation online. And our goal is to bring it back into the streets, meaning that we're bringing the people together, that we're connecting with our legislators, and we're demanding that they stand for the justice that is needed for our communities, because this deeply impacts us all, regardless if you're a cisgendered woman, whether you're trans person, whether you're a queer person, however you present, knowing that at the center of it for a lot of us that we need to have access to this comprehensive care and what is going on, and that people seek these services that oftentimes helps them plan for their families. So, for one instance, when it comes to abortion care, one fact that is out there now is that I believe it's either 40 or 60%. I should have this in front of me. I apologize. The people who seek abortion care are actually already married, which again flies in the face of what we talk about the conversations of the tropes of how people categorize or cast abortion into the mainstream conversation. And it's our role, and I'm tasking you all to join us in the cause of combating against that tonight by joining our campaign at www.womenengage.org/join. You can take Black and Row, and we'll get into you and catch you up to speed in terms of what's going on, providing that fact-based education. And we're inviting you to join in on the campaign so we can not only pass the Reproductive Freedom Act, not only so we could pass the Women's Health Care Protection Act on the national level, but that we could continue to fight for the full comprehensive healthcare services that we need in this country and actualize our full human rights as Black women, femmes, and girls. And so I don't see any comments in the chat. I'm just providing a little bit of time there and going over my notes to make sure that I have talked up everyone who is here. Again, I just want to shout out the folks who really helped us make this possible, our partners who continue to share the hashtag. I'm really inviting you all to continue to use the hashtag, whether it's on Wednesday when we're having the live conversations on Twitter, or throughout the week, or whenever these things come up that we're really talking about what's going on. And again, continuing to honor and name the 12 Mothers of Reproductive Justice, and that's Toni M. Bond, Leonard, Reverend Alma Crawford, Evelyn S. Field, Terry James, Bisolo Merengay, Cassandra McConnell, Cynthia Newbely, Loretta Ross, Elizabeth Terry, Abel Mabel Thomas, Wynette P. Willis, and Kim Youngblood, who helped us continue to codify the term reproductive justice in 1994, and knowing that we need to continue to carry that and know that it's beyond just the access to abortion, knowing that it's abortion and access to living wages to make sure that we can care for the families that we want to have, and that we can care for the families that we're building together, that we can continue to actualize safe and sustainable communities where we can not only live our lives, but that we can thrive. And so I really appreciate you all for joining us tonight. I hope that you can continue to stay connected again with the hashtag. That's hashtag BLK, the letter N, Row, Black and Row, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere that you can find us on social media to continue to have this conversation. We're going to have some amazing events planned for the month of June. So please stay tuned for that as we have more details coming about that out in May. And again, I really appreciate you all tonight for your time, your patience, and everything that you do. And so until next time, this has been Michelle with Women Engage. Again, deeply talking about the work at the intersections of civic engagement and reproductive justice, and how we can come together right now to fight for Black women, femmes, and girls today, ensuring that we are fighting for the full breadth of our human rights, and that we're calling to task the rest of the community to show up for us in the same ways that we show up for others. And so thank you all so much. I hope you all have a great evening, and until next time.